Hello and welcome to my page, welcome to my sanctuary, welcome to my space. There's actually a lot of new people to my page lately, followers and likers, and I think it's nice to know who's behind the page. So I am Lisa. I founded Lisa's Sanctuary probably about 6 years ago now, which and initially was intended to be just part of my own healing journey. It was a healing tool for myself to share my story, to, I guess, come to terms with what I had experienced, to understand, what I'd been through and to share that. And then I found that there were lots of other women who resonated with what I was saying, resonated with what I'd experienced, shared their own parts of their stories with me. And it just kind of took off from there. And it was really beneficial for me along my healing journey. So a little bit of a background on me, because I think that it is really helpful to know who is behind the page, the story. People's stories fascinate me. So my story is that I met him when I was 15. We were both traumatized young people, and we ended up having a family together. I fell pregnant when I was 15. I had my first baby when I was 16. And it took me a long time to realize that what I was living was domestic violence. To begin with, it just didn't feel right. It wasn't happiness. It wasn't something that I wanted. I guess if you had asked me, where I saw myself in future, I never saw myself with him in the future, because it just wasn't a happy existence. That I put on a fake smile a lot, and I justified a lot of behaviors. I explained and reasoned and hid a lot of what I experienced throughout our relationship and throughout our marriage. But I left, and when I say left, I actually mean escaped, because when you are with somebody who, threatens, abuses, uses violence, you don't just leave those relationships, you escape them. And there were a lot of incidences along the way. But like I said, I at first did not understand what I was living. I didn't read about it. I didn't see it. I didn't know about it. I just didn't have the information. I didn't have, the other people who had experienced it and shared it for me to know what was going on. I just knew that I was unhappy. I knew that I didn't like the way I was living. And I knew that I didn't feel loved or important or significant to my partner or my husband. And then I ended up, once I enrolled into a university undergraduate degree, it was based on community development. So I did a lot of, social policy, social justice, psychology, community related units. And I discovered that what I was living had a name, and it was domestic violence. But it still took me a few years of denial to actually be able to admit to myself, and then be able to admit to other people that that's what I was living, because I guess you don't want to admit, or I didn't want to admit, that I was in a domestic violence, relationship, existence, life. And so it took me probably about 5 years to leave that relationship, to escape that relationship. There were police charges, police call-outs, AVOs before I escaped. I have 5 children who lived it with me, who experienced it and were impacted by domestic violence and are still impacted by domestic violence. They all bear their own emotional scars and wounds from growing up in a house filled with tension and fear and hypervigilance, and not knowing what was going to happen next, and not knowing, when the next fight was or when the next police call out would be. And so that's something that I struggle with, even to this day, is what my children experienced. And because they do, have all their own emotional and mental issues from it, it is an ongoing, everyday thing that we deal with. So I escaped that relationship about 10 years ago now. And then about 5 years after that, I began writing my book called Why I Stayed, because a lot of people didn't understand how I stayed for so long and why I stayed for so long in a marriage which was controlling, threatening, full of fear. It was abusive. It was violent at times. I, was essentially single parenting while I had a husband. And it was chaos. It was madness. It was miserable. And so I did write my book, Why I Stayed, to just explain why women or victims stay in relationships that are controlling and manipulative and abusive and violent. There's so many reasons behind it. And then I found myself in another relationship which ended up with him using behaviors of abuse and violence. And I felt so stupid. I felt stupid for finding myself in another similar situation. And that relationship had started off differently. It had, I thought I had done the work on myself. I thought I would never find somebody like that again. I thought that I knew too much and I'd seen too much and I'd learnt too much, but I found myself there again. And so I left that relationship probably about 5 or 6 years ago. And ever since then, I've been sharing my story, my experiences on my Facebook page, and I have a website and I have a book. And, at the moment I have a coaching program because I am a qualified hypnotist, hypnotherapist, because I found that hypnosis for me was a game changer along my healing journey. But I share my healing journey in the hopes of contributing to yours, because I want to be that person that, shows you that there is life after trauma. There is life after domestic violence. It is possible. It's not easy, but it is possible. And so my page is about my story and my experiences and what I've learned along the way, how to heal and how to move through my trauma responses, how to begin to love myself and accept myself for who I am, but also what I went through and what I experienced and what I allowed myself to put up with. I've had to forgive myself for that, forgive myself for the person that I had to be when I was just trying to survive. And so a few years ago, I found hypnosis. I have used a lot of different services over the years, psychologists, counselors, group programs, massage, tapping, and, all are beneficial, all are helpful, and they work because all healing is self-healing. It's about finding that modality or that person who can support you, guide you, hold space, teach you, show you, educate you on how to invoke your own healing abilities and capabilities. Because all healing is self-healing. You are powerful beyond measure. And when you have lived with a person or people, because a lot of trauma does come from childhood as well, and then we reenact that as adults, or we find similar people to the people who caused us harm or caused us trauma during childhood. We find those people because that's our normal, that's familiar to us, that feels safe to us. And so when you find that person or that service who guides you, shows you, holds space for you, it invokes your own healing ability and capabilities. You are powerful but beyond measure, because we often forget that or don't even know that because of the people that we've been surrounded by, the people who have told us that we're worthless, or that we're useless, or that we're fat, dumb, ugly, and any other name that you have heard during your life. We don't trust ourselves, and we don't believe in ourselves the way that we should. And so I did find hypnosis a few years ago, and it was a game changer for me. Hypnosis delves into, the patterns, the conditioning that you experienced, or the foundations that were laid during childhood. Everything is held in your subconscious mind. All of the memories, everything you've learned, experienced, everyone you've interacted with, everyone you've ever met, all the books, TV shows, movies, information, everything is held in your subconscious. And our foundations of who we are today generally are laid by the time we're 7 years old. And that is just, it can be absurd, because when you're surrounded by people who teach you what they've learned and what they grew to know, and what they were immersed in, we can end up with some really screwy beliefs as we grow into adults and move into adulthood and meet different people, and have all of our different experiences of life. And so hypnosis was a game changer for me. I certified in it. I'm qualified in it. It can change your life. But I continue to share my healing journey in the hopes of contributing to yours, because I've been there. I escaped domestic violence broken. I was broken, and I had no idea how to move forward or how to build myself up from there. So it's been a journey. It's been, a journey of 10 years in the making to get from being that broken woman to where I am today. And I am a much different person now. There is still, I still have a way to go. There are still things that I still need to heal, and that I think our healing journeys are just an ever-evolving thing. Healing is not a destination. For instance, disassociation is sort of a go-to trauma response of mine, and I still work through some of those things. I do still get triggered. It doesn't just go away. You just learn to cope with them a little bit easier. You learn different tools and strategies to put into place to move through them quicker. My dog's over there. So sometimes he comes over and has a look at the phone, but hopefully he stays over there for now. But this is me. This is what I do. This is who I am. And because I've been there and I've experienced it, I know how bad it feels. I know that it is just horrendous to wake up in the morning and dread the day ahead, because you just don't know how to move through it, or you just don't care to move through it, or you lay in bed every night and you just think and wonder, and the negative loop it just loops over and over and over, because you don't have the tools and strategies, or you haven't resolved it, or you haven't got any closure with what you're thinking about. And so quite recently I have created a video series which I've called Instant Emotional Relief, because that's what it is. It provides instant emotional relief. It's the resources and tools and strategies that I've picked up along my healing journey that I use and that I know work. And you can access that by joining my email community at www.lisasanctuary.info/instant, and I'll link that in the comments. But I would love for you to join my email community. It's very new. I'm still finding my way around like the business strategy side of my sharing and what I do. But I would love for you to join my community and get access to that series, because it works. And I know that it's possible, and I know how much better it feels being in this position than what I was, 10 years ago, 7 years ago, even 3 years ago. We're always changing, we're always growing, we're always learning and expanding. And I want to be here, as this survivor-led business or service or organization to show you that it's possible. I've been there and now I'm here, and I want you to be here too. I want you to feel the peace and the freedom and the happiness that is possible when you embark on a healing journey and you start to unpack that trauma and soothe through the pain. There is tremendous emotional pain from trauma and abuse, and it doesn't have to be that way, and I don't want it to be that way for you. So I do have that series there, but also This Is Me. I share on my page. I wrote my book, Why I Stayed, in response to all the questions that I got asked. I like to share, my knowledge, what I've learned, what I've experienced, to show you that there is another side. There is a light at the end of that tunnel. And I would love for you to connect with me. I would love for you to interact with me. Send me messages, send me questions. Whatever you need to know along your healing journey is what I'm here for. I do have a Monday evening online support group that I run. It's been a little bit up and down over the last few weeks because I've had some health issues, which I believe stems from trauma. I have an autoimmune condition which I was diagnosed with when I was 19, and what I've learned along the way is that when our bodies sit in chronic stress, in survival mode, in hypervigilance, our bodies can't do that growth, repair, and heal. And so that's where I believe chronic illness and disease, begins from. It's our body's inability to repair and heal itself because we're sitting in chronic stress, because we're sitting in survival mode, because we're hypervigilant, because we're always looking and scanning and predicting and anticipating and trying to keep ourselves safe. So when you feel unsafe, your body goes into that survival mode and it can't be in repair and heal mode. So I have had some health issues over the last couple of weeks, so that support group's been a little bit sort of up and down, but I'm hoping to really get back into it. I'd love for you to join me. Nothing is off limits in there. I am, a victim survivor who will answer your questions, who will tell you how I got to where I am. I want to show you. I want to teach you how to be here, because it's just better here. It's just so much better here. You are significant because you are, and I love you because you exist. I want you to have a great day, and if it's not a great day, I want you just to have a day. And if you can't see yourself getting through the whole day, go hour by hour. Just make it through the next hour, because I've been there and I know that it's not easy, but I want you to know that it's possible.